So good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to meet all of you. Just to give you a brief, that ETBFSI.com is the dedicated news portal by the Economic Times, and it has a strong focus on the digital side. So at ETBFSI, we cover BFSI very, very diligently. And the benefit of having a dedicated news portal is this, that at paper level, what happens is if you have an interview of a SBI chairman, then there is no place for any other bank's CEO. If you look at ETBFSI, then banks, insurance, NBFCs, FinTechs, we have whole segments of cover, and digital allows me specifically at our portal to curate the content in any format, whether it's podcast, infographics, or video, or article, whichever. And this is one part of the news or the content that we generate on a daily basis. And we also have a newsletter, which we send every day in the morning, consolidating whatever is happening in the BFSI space. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe, or I myself will add it. It's just free. And second part of digital news that we cover is the events like this. Every quarter we have some activity like this, CXO Conclave, where we invite a lot of industry speakers like you and maybe pick up few topics and discuss that. So उससे दो benefit होते हैं हमारे लिए, मतलब 2 हफ्ते का content निकल जाता है. So to be very honest, and we also get to learn a lot. Apart from that, networking हो जाते हैं, बहुत सारे लोगों से मिलना होता है, and it's a good content. So sometimes what happens is most of the times we don't manage to do all the sessions in the rooms. So whichever sessions that we think are knowledge types, then we do it in a boardroom. So again, glad to have all of you here and having this specific conversation about the topic called BFSI, unlocking the value of data with analytics. So to begin with, these days, whomever I meet from the BFSI space, he speaks about only data and analytics. That's it. And how to utilize it. In fact, the previous session was also about it, in terms of how to utilize it better, how to serve the customer better. These are basically the understanding that I have. So considering this topic, I would like you to first give your perspective in terms of what do you think in terms of unlocking the value of data with analytics, in terms of how do you look at this subject itself, why it is important for BFSI. And maybe you can take your opening remarks maybe in a 1 or 2 minute, and then we can get into the specific questions. So I'll start with you if you don't mind, and then we'll move on to like this. So sure. Yes, Ankit, go ahead.
Hi, Ankit from Vaina. A very pertinent topic and the pertinent route for data analytics, because credit is all around data. Yeah. Credit is all around data analytics today. Even at Vaina, we have multiple product processes where we are in the credit, compliance, and cash businesses through various products. And then idea is how we leverage the data which is generated through all these product lines to ensure that maximum penetration to the customer can be done. While I say that it's very interesting, at the same time, there's a lot of abuse which has happened over past years on the customer data, which is where even the regulators are keen in putting right compliance around this, and that's why it becomes absolutely critical, not just for generating value or doing the right analysis, but also as the entities in the finance space managing monies on behalf of the customer, it becomes absolute important for us to have right governance and policies around the data that we manage, and use the data judiciously. So right access to the data, the analysis that is generated to be put to right use, control misuse, is where I see the data analytics today is playing part in the BFSI segment.
Sure. Meaningful thoughts, Ankit. Let me move to animation now.
Yeah, thank you, Anmol, and thanks for me having here. So in last 10 years, couple of revolution has happened. Right? Each one of us knows, whether it's in e-commerce, in food player, people talk about 10 minutes grocery delivery, or even the pharmacy, the medicine delivery, right? But to be honest, in the banking sector, where we used to have a fixed products in market, right? Term loan, line of credit, car loan, business loan, personal loan. But customer has moved way ahead in the evolution he or she has seen in last 10 years. And I feel the same evolution is happening in the lending space. where we used to think on the way money moves, like 10 years back when a check was deposited and it used to take a week. Now even a second, I mean, I even wait for a second. I say, okay, has money been moved to your account? You say, okay, it's done. Like that kind of conversation we have. I think the similar transition is happening in the lending space, and that's a transition phase we are in, and data plays a critical role. Now the customer, there are many times we paint it in a same color. We ask for a bureau score, banking transaction, the fixed thing, right? But many times the customer is a thin file. He or she hasn't taken a loan in the past. A customer which comes from a food segment or from an e-commerce segment are totally different. In like this whole cloud kitchen thing, 50% of the restaurant closed down after a year. So I need to have a different model, different data, which push into my model and takes the decision. So huge customization, personalization is required at each level on all of the sectors. Yeah, so that's my perspective on.
Yeah, I think meaningful thoughts, Animesh. Vittal, let me take your views.
Sure. Hi, I'm Vittal. I manage technology for Profectus Capital. We started our operation 4.5 years back. We're backed by UK-based PE called Actis. And we are focused only on SMEs actually, and this is secured loans, right? For us, actually, it was a no-brainer, right? I mean, the usage of data, being a new age NBFC, obviously is a no-brainer, right? And data in lending has always been used. It's not that data is, I mean, the people are using this recently or something, right? But the way the data was getting used, right, earlier, so a lot of paper files, somebody would basically copy that data into Excel, then use the brain to understand whatever the nuances of the data. So all that with the new digital norms, right, has gone away. So what data has brought into is efficiency currently in lending business, right? So how quickly you underwrite a customer, right, underwrite a loan by getting all the data aspect about the business or individual together very quickly, right? And there's a science behind it, obviously, but as a user of a technology, I don't need to worry about that science. There are people, there are companies who are actually focused on that science. I'm actually using it and using it effectively. And for the NBFCs, whether it's traditional NBFCs, banks, new age NBFCs, using the data today is really easy actually. If you understand your problem, right, and the definition of problem is critical actually, the use case, then how to apply the technology to that problem is really easy. That's my perspective on the whole data. Yeah.
Okay, again a very different perspective and the meaningful one. Thanks, Vittal. Nikhil? Oh, sorry. Nikhil? Yeah.
Thank you, Amol. We come from a space, APAC Financial Services, focused in lending, but lending to micro enterprises in remote locations. So when we think of an individual, say Shanamugam, sitting in a small place called Erode somewhere in Tamil Nadu, we imagine that this person has to find where, if there is a need of money, he needs to find where can I get the money from. Right. At the same time, there is a company, APAC, which is having their office, needs to find who are the people who need money, and who are the people who are the sectors who need financial inclusion, right, and need money. If I go 10 years back, as Animesh was mentioning, 10 years back, this was only based on relationships. Right. So this individual will talk to the next Kirana store and ask that, is there somewhere I can get money from, or otherwise will be handcuffed with a money lender. Right. Similarly, this organization needs to really rely on some of the relationship officers in that vicinity. Just fast forward 10 years now. Today, if we see the power of data, you call it Google, you call it Facebook, you call it WhatsApp, the power of data to address these three elements. Element number one, where do I find the right kind of customer for an organization? The data is available. Where will I find the right kind of lender? The data is available. And the most important side where the data power comes is where can I lend to this person? Is he credit worthy? Earlier, it used to be, we know this person. Later, it used to be a bureau record. Then it moved to a surrogate data. And now it is a combination of a whole lot of these things with a social footprint, account aggregator data. And that made it so rich that I would just fast forward it 10 years later, where the same guy, Shanmugam in Erode, would ask possibly Alexa, saying that I would like to get a loan of XYZ lakhs. And Alexa would possibly give a response, sitting on one of the platforms, would give a response saying that you have these 3 lenders. The probability of you getting this kind of loan is best from this one.
Right.
And that's what I see the power of.
Wow. No, really, really meaningful. And I agree that it's database. Now you said that earlier the bankers used to look at the customer, they knew the customer and they used to disburse the loans. Now they don't even know who the customer is. And my point is, what if it becomes invisible, with the person who has borrowed the money? So I think meaningful thoughts. Prasad, I'm sure you will have a little different perspective because you are kind of offering solutions for data and AI. So what is your perspective here?
Hi, I'm Prasad. I take care of the pre-sales for data engineering at Nevius. So what I gather from the audience here is that, NBFCs form and the fintechs form the vast chunk of the organizations who have to have an outreach in a country like India, where there are so many regional languages, etc. Right? And when we talk about data, we always say, I want to create the golden records, right? But it's not just about golden records. Have you created the golden moments for your customers? And have you really taken those golden decisions? Right? Because traditional banks are sitting on traditional canned reports, and you cannot make the right decisions for your consumers, right? So with respect to the NBFCs and the fintechs, so the outreach becomes very important. And I'll give a case. Nikhil, he's very enthusiastic in terms of envisioning technology, and we worked with his previous organization to have a chatbot solution on the Google Cloud platform to basically drive this outreach program for across the various regions in India, right? And even coming to traditional banks, which are large conglomerates by themselves, they operate in multiple business units. So there what happens is, do they really have, they might have a lot of data, but can that data be made available at the right moment when the relationship manager is about to talk to a prospective customer, right? So we work with a lot of such traditional banks as well across their BUs, where we developed a virtual relationship management platform where when the job card is flashed for a salesperson to talk to a customer, he exactly knows what is the context of the the customer. And that is because all this raw data is processed from the various business units and the sources. And the insights are available right just below that job card.
Okay. I mean, quite meaningful, Prasad. Let me speak specifically about analytics now. And I don't know, I ask this question whenever I, specifically talk about data and analytics, that the BNPL product is really famous now. Now the RBI is also going strong on digital lending, and a lot of millennials are, borrowing under the BNPL, even for going on a date. Now my question is, what if अगर उनका breakup हो जाए, पैसे कौन देगा, right? So the question that I have for you is, and Ankit, you can start with, is analytics engineering and materializing value from data is what I want to discuss. So how do you actually understand by these analytics that this is my accurate customer? He will not default even if he goes through breakup.
Right. So this is where, if I specific talk to the type of business that we do, which is say supply chain finance, and that's where I say that data has to be collected from multiple sources. Today, there is no dearth of availability of data, but idea is to reach out to get the right data and then analyze in a manner where it makes meaningful outcomes for us. So, for example, a lot of business relationships around supply chain are driven by anchors, okay, with their dealers. Now, can we reach out to these anchors and collect their relationship data? with these dealers to make a meaningful assessment of this dealer is some of the tools that we employ. In fact, to a level that this then goes as a feedback back to the anchors, for them to manage their relationship with the dealers, to bring that trustworthiness. So that's where I say that we talk about surrogate data. This can be one of the surrogates data, but then this has to match with all other sources of data to become meaningful. And primarily, which may be available in public domain, which may be derived, as you rightly said, maybe circumstantial, where the industry is heading, all those other factors which may influence the loan or the credit line extended to the customer has to be fed in, and then a meaningful picture has to be generated to generate the right product to the customer, to give him the right line which he may be able to sustain, and the right tenor which may be meaningful not just for us as a business, but even for him to maintain his credit worthiness going forward.
Quite meaningful, Ankit. Can I have your views also on this? The same, and maybe then I will take another questions with the.
So we are into unsecured business loan, right? So pre-COVID, we still have underwriters, and we used to have underwriters where each kind of a file used to go through it. Post my decision engine or my brainchild used to make a decision. Right? Then this whole BNPL thing, whole automation thing came in, right? So what I always say is that you start with a small experiment, and then you see, okay, how is your model performing? So we put some X amount, couple of crore for 2 quarters, and say, given it's a lending space we are into, it takes me 3 quarters or 4 quarters to finally see the results of it. So we put some money and waited for 4 quarters, and then we saw, okay, it's sustainable, I'm profitable with my whole model decision, what it's taking. Then we kind of exploded. I mean, we increased the scope of the same to go across different things. So what initially I put as just a experimental money, I'm disbursing more than in a month now. So you need to be keep looking for data which makes sense for you, and then you need to be experimenting fast, right? And fast in the sense, and then there's always my next generation model which will be performing better than the previous one, which I need to keep evolving on it.
Okay, sure. So I think next generation model has to be all. I think that is again a very interesting point, because otherwise you will collect data once and maybe you can't use it for all your life. You have to update, and you all very nice points here. So again, Nikhil, I will start with you. A little different question, since we are talking about hyper personalization now, and by using big data and API open banking. So how this hyper personalization can be really a good business model, based on specifically data and AI. I mean, data and AI is giving a fillip to hyper personalization, but is it really adding a business value or business, what you can say, to the lenders, borrowers?
So first of all, hyper personalization will have a right set of values based on the kind of product focus an organization has. So it has to be seen in a context. So an organization which is having multiple products, so multiple life stages products, if I think of lending for customers in a particular in a geography, then you talk about the linguistics, that what languages they do understand, what age demography they are at, what different stage of life they are, and you have your communications connects with the customers with those personalization, and then give an address. So if this person is getting married today, the 2 years later or 1.5 years later, your connect with the customer will be more towards the next stage of life. You are going to have your child and then see those needs. Linguistics play a very important role, where multilingual techniques of interacting with customers do come into picture. And I'll just cover a small piece of analytics where we say that the decision making in terms of, yes, is this going to be our next customer? So propensity of acquiring a customer or propensity of a default of a customer. All these things also would be, I would say it will have the element is that you can't be accurate, but you can just judge a propensity, and the accuracy model depends on the volume of data. So when you say a huge volume of data for, let's say, the number of logins to a actual conversion, there is going to be huge volume of data. Probably if you, once you are a small company, the credit data of your own will not be as great. And I'm sure Abhinav and others have also tried that it's your data plus additional data you put together and then create a right model. So these two things I think are the ones where propensity, you can't expect it to be accurate. The moment you see a model which is like a 95% fitment, then you should consider that it's an overfit model, and I think there is something which is wrong. And similarly, when you think of hyper personalization, I think it has to be contextual. If somebody he has a focus to do lending in a urban market, the hyper personalization is going to be absolutely different. It's going to be lifestyle based. In a rural market, it's going to be life event based. So that's how we'll.
Okay. Yeah, sure. I think meaningful thoughts here. After Nikhil Vittal, do you want to also add on the hyper personalization part?
Sure. So I would talk from a business context, right? And personalization is basically how closely you understand that business. What are the different attributes of that business, right? I mean, the promoters, what segment that business is in, where are they operating from, how is the business doing in terms of macroeconomics and all that, right? So if you go to each aspect of the business, right, the financials, the cash flows, right, compliance, promoters, legal cases. So each of these points can become then very specific to that business. So how closely you understand that business becomes really to me a personalization, right, for that individual business, right? So then you use that data in terms of kind of sanctioning that loan, right, to find out the willingness of the promoter to repay that loan. And the capability of the promoters or the directors to repay that loan, right? So these are the two aspects, and whether those people or that business is prone to frauds, right? So using some of these lot of parameters or attributes, you go to the specifics, right, about that business. Actually, go deeper into that business. That I would say is the personalization from the business perspective, right? And then in SME lending, this is actually getting used very effectively currently, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sure. Noted, Vittal. So again, Prasad, do you also want to add on the hyper personalization part in the open banking?
Speaking of hyper personalization, right? So we are a Google Cloud partner, and Google is a consumer company. It knows, and when we speak about hyper personalization, we feel that I can track what my customer is doing on my financial app. But rarely do a lot of action happens on the financial app. Most of the time, the action is happening on a Facebook or a Twitter and those things. That is where the emotions, the variation in the data is largely being captured, right? So there are a lot of solutions that are enabling to enrich your customer data, which you anyway gather from your financial apps, with the variations and the personas that you see on the social media, called a product called Ads Data Hub, which Google has. So we enrich that data further, right? So that is one aspect of personalization. I think someone speaking about when you do this thing, there is this customer data that is across the time that is flowing. A customer would have given a certain phone number at some point of time, and we have this use case with one of the NBFCs in the gold loan business. So when they come in a certain month, they would have given a certain phone number, and the next month some other phone number, and we don't know which is there, who is this customer finally, right? So we work with a manufacturing conglomerate also to actually it could be a repeatable solution in this industry as well, where across the business units where they are probably opening up more, we gather the data and we do a dedupe process. And the dedupe is an exhaustive process where we are verifying, is this the same customer? And finally we end up giving a unique ID. and that is when we do our processing, right? So this is one of the, and this basically helps you to drive a richer revenue stream, because you want a person who is really engaged with your organization to give you more and more service and engage them more, and not just go. Basically, the outcome is to have a very rich revenue stream. That only happens if you do an hyper personalization.
Okay, noted your point. So Ankit, I remember you telling me just now that collect data from various sources, and there are multiple sources available. So obviously, I mean, even if you download a normal app, that asks you about so many permissions, and I always ask myself, why your weather app also want to access my contact details? Do they want to give me a weather direction depending on my contacts and images? But the question that comes to my mind, Ankit, is what are the major pain points that you find, while building a robust database? Because there are so many databases, but you do not know how many those data points are authentic, whether the data is in an unorganized or organized space. So how do you build a robust data center or whatever for your benefit out of all these, segments?
So if you ask me challenges, and all my technology colleagues would appreciate, so they are both technology and business aspect of challenges in building an effective data lake. We are, in my organization, we are currently undertaking one such exercise, and this exercise has been running long, and so I can appreciate the challenges that we face, right from the point that sheer volume of data which is available. Make a meaningful sense, you need to have the right business logic, and then different business functions will have their own logic, and that needs to marry to create an overall sense from the volume that you are getting. Again, this volume being available with what velocity. So Nikhil was mentioning about the velocity at which this data is available. Different data points may be available at different times, which may have different impact on the judgment that can happen. So how do you take care of those aspects to avoid false positives that may happen? Third challenge may be the sources themselves. These, some are digital, some may not be available digital, to be converted to digital, may be available in different formats. Within organization, across products, data is available in different languages. How do you bring that data to centralize lake to be able to utilize that? And then beyond that comes your aspects of compliance. The point just mentioned, data privacy, and then above that, data security. All those challenges, because these may impact the organization by means that we cannot imagine today. So those are the challenges that needs to be rightly addressed to have an effective data lake exercise. So
yeah, sure. Since you are part doing unsecured, so you want to be more careful, right? So how do you do that?
Sure. So so there are times many I won't say weird, but different kind of needs comes in. So I remember one of the business guys said, okay, this vendor can underwrite based, I mean, you take a photo of the customer and he can underwrite on that base. Theoretically, yes, but do I want to do it now, or shall I wait for a couple of years when you have enough data over there, right? So I'm not sure, taking a picture will say, okay, whether this person will delinquent or NPA or not. So as Ankit mentioned, huge amount of unstructured data. So you need to have a data warehousing solution. Then you have a multi-cloud thing in place where AWS makes sense or GCP makes sense. That's another thing. Data velocity is another thing. Right? There are many data. I mean, like bureau thing, it gets updated once in a month. That's, I mean, a person can ideally do a fraud, right? How do there are places I need too much velocity. There are places it's already too much velocity, I can't consume it. Then sanctity of data, data security, lots of unstructured data, making meaning out of it. So, and data security, definitely with new digital guidelines, who all have the access to the same, you need to be cognizant of it, not just from the outside world, then even within your organization, you get all kinds of fraud cases which is happening within your space as well. So that's how.
Yeah. So on this part, I will take another question because we understood a lot about robust database centers and how to make that by collecting huge data. So now my question is about, we discussed a lot about bank data, AI and all, but partly discussed business, but my focus is more on that, And maybe if you want to share any example also, would be really great. So how BFSI organizations are actually leveraging data for identifying avenues of business opportunities, because ultimately everything should lead to the business, right? And I will start with you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So a whole lot of people keep talking about propensity of default is or credit worthiness, for which they use analytics, they use different models. Somebody would say that logistic regression for this one fits better, random forest for this one fits better. Somebody even smarter would say the XGBoost will apply better on this. But I think you have put a point which is very close to my heart, which is credit worthiness is important, but first to acquire customers, how organizations should use data, and the companies who are going to have an accelerated growth would certainly focus on this aspect, where which demography we are. So first of all, we should be clear into what business model we are going. So it's a mix of quorum here, where somebody is completely focused on larger ticket size urban markets, somebody completely focused on smaller ticket size urban markets, somebody is completely focused on smaller ticket size rural markets. So for all of us, for acquisition of customers or right customers, the data mining process itself is going to be different. So if you think of a business which APAC does, which is a micro lab business in tier 3, tier 4 cities, for us, a LinkedIn data will have no value. But for us, WhatsApp data will have a whole lot of value. The municipal corporation groups, WhatsApp groups, will have a whole lot of value, where they will talk about what are the trade which they are doing. So the focus for us would be there. Similarly, for a organization which is focused on SMEs, they will have the data points are going to be different. So I would say, and someone who is doing an unsecured loans for masses, they will have a collaboration of data all across. You think of a guy and a girl going for a date, possibly they will churn out something from LinkedIn. Similarly, they are going to take care of the Facebook profiles if they are going to get someone who is into a business and they are lending unsecured loans. So I think in the context of the business you are working, for acquisition of customers, you need to decide your data acquisition strategy and then acquire data.
Really meaningful, Nikhil. Vittal, do you want to add on that?
Sure. Like Nikhil said, right, it's what's your strategy, right? With many businesses going digital, there is no dearth of data, right? And all these businesses are living trail of the data, right? Whether it's a point of sales machine or e-commerce platforms, right? Or food delivery or cab aggregators. Actually, most of the businesses are becoming digital, right? So what is your segment, right? And to tap that segment, what are the right repositories of the data? And these are digitally available, right? And then how do we basically get that data together and use that? That's the strategy, right? And I just wanted to add about one more thing, right? The velocity and the volume of data has increased, definitely. But so is the technology advancement, right? Now, I mean, imagine if somebody wanted to build a data warehouse 10 years back, right? The kind of pain, cost, time, right, used to go into that used to be, I mean, it's unimaginable if you look at from current context. With the cloud, right, the spawn of the infrastructure in a matter of minutes, right, get the ETL tools and my data lake is ready in a matter of months actually, right, or weeks, right. So that is the things what technology brought into place, right. And now it's just how you define your problem, right, what are the sources you want to tap, and technology is there. I think technology is a lot easier now actually.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think the strategy is you identify which are your data sources, then how to get that data is not really difficult actually. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, partly true, but I think partly true, but I will agree with you when we will stop Vijay Mallya from running away. the next Vijay Mallya. So Animesh will laugh at me because I gave the same example in the previous session which I was doing. Yeah, noted your points, Vittal.
Yeah.
Prasad, you want to add on that business part?
Yeah. So we have a case study where a telecom tower maintenance provider wanted to increase their operational efficiency by leveraging our Doc AI solution. Okay, so they had so many bills related to the electricity, the diesel usage of the towers, etc. And we built the solution on Google Cloud Doc AI, right? And today they are thinking of monetizing this document management platform, right? So we think even in the financial industry, let's not talk about bills, maybe there are statements, right? So if you build a platform that can process statements, then that could also be another line of an opportunity for a business to, it's a value add. I think Ankit was mentioning about experiments, and Animesh was telling this is not a science, but I'll tell you, it's what we do is actually a data alchemy, right? Because we work with one FinTech app to identify who are their loyal customers. It takes a while to see the customer behavior to identify who's my loyal customers. It took 30 days for them. So we have an AI/ML solution which will help them identify within 7 days, right? So that they can engage that customer more. And here they did not create those golden records and the perfect data. They are literally experimenting. So we did that experiment for a while, and we need a playground to do this experiment, which has to be cost effective, because in the playground you at least have to deal with terabytes of data on which you shouldn't be able to spend a lot on terabytes. Maybe on petabytes of data, yeah, that is when you probably really want to cost, right? So we have in Google Cloud cost-effective serverless solution where you can do your experiments on terabytes of data and then scale to petabytes and think in terms of cost. So by doing these things, experiments, we can engage the customers very early in the stage, right? And finally, I would like to say that there are a lot of, I think you were talking about the ETL tools. So it is important to choose the right ETL tool in the beginning itself, so that you never know which data sources you may have to support in the future and what volume and velocity you have to have, right? And that is what we provide in the Google Cloud managed services for your ETL using an extensible plugin-based architecture.
Again, meaningful thoughts here. I think I'm done with my questions and time is also up, but anyone who wants to make any last comment or something, any closing remarks, I'm open, else we can, maybe close down.
No, just to add, so some of the interesting things which are happening around, in the personal finance space, even in the MSME, SME space, how data being generated, psychoanalysis through automated recordings. Those are some of the interesting tools which are coming, which generate data for helping you make those right decisions. Analyzers now, data coming from GST. Data coming from your bank statement, you being able to make meaningful sense out of it is what now is possible, and then with the players like account aggregators which are able to consolidate this and give you at one go a whole 360-degree view of the customer for all those hyper personalization opportunities exist today. It's all about, like Mr. Vittal mentioned, that you need to define your problem statement first. Technology solutions are available. Business needs to be very clear, what they need to focus, and out of this data, what they need to derive. Okay, and that's where most of the efforts and challenges in the data analytics go. I think rightly mentioned, technology is available. There are certain challenges which can obviously be addressed by right tools, but then business objective, creating those business definitions is one of the most critical aspect that needs to be first addressed before we get into those processes. That's one thing, one thought I want to.
Just one line to add. So as Nikhil mentioned, customer asking the Alexa, I don't think it would be 10 years. It would be much sooner than that. When we would saying I need a capital need, and Alexa will give 3 options. I'll say 1, and it would be transitioned to my account.
remarkable one. I think it was a good learning for me. That's a headline for me actually. You will soon see that article on my website.
Maybe in 10 years, AI will solve the inflation problem.
Yeah, quite possible. I think anything is possible. But great, I think remarkable thoughts. Thanks, Ankit, Animesh, Nikhil, Vittal, and Prasad for all the inputs that you have shared and shared your perspective on this topic. Thank you so much for being part of ETBFSI CXO Conclave. Thank you.